Manifestations and pictograms then. As a lot of you know, throughout 2009 I had the great pleasure, the great privilege of helping Hamish Miller complete a book which was intended to be his autobiography and ended up as an authorised biography. In it we list out all the various things that Hamish discovered throughout his very eventful life, and two of them are quintessentially things that belong in Hamish's canon: the manifestations and the pictograms. And this time last year I gave a talk, as many of you know, about Hamish and the book that we wrote together. And during the year all sorts of emails and telephone calls have drifted into me saying, well, that was really interesting, but I didn't understand that bit about manifestations and pictograms. And to be honest, neither do I. However, it's true, we haven't got that far yet. It's one of those things that people say, yes, they exist, but what are they? Well, let's start with the manifestations, because I think they're a little bit more understandable, or at least credible. Manifestations, from Hamish Miller's point of view, are things which are firstly symmetrical, and secondly tend to appear only at nodal points. In other words, crossing points, power points, as Bill said, crossing points of major energy lines. And therefore the logical conclusion would be that A, they have some earth energy in them, and secondly they're probably interference patterns of some sort. Now beyond that, I don't think we've got any further. The other important thing with a manifestation is that it does seem to change as a result of the interaction with the dowser. Now, Hamish first brought this up in his book The Sun and the Serpent, and he found that as he worked his way up the Michael and Mary lines, where the manifestations appeared, they became more complex, and he felt that was him interacting with the manifestation, interacting with the earth energy. And if you remember rightly, those of you that were at Knowlton, we found that there were a whole string of these things at each of the crossing points of the earth energy lines. So whilst I don't think we really understand what or why they are, at least we've got some handle on what they might be. And some of them are quite simple, some of them are much more complex, and most of them seem to develop over time. However, when we get onto the pictograms, it all flies out of the window. Because firstly, I personally have found no earth energy in them, although I'll come back to in a minute to somebody who has. And secondly, they are such a diverse bunch of symbols and forms and icons that it's actually very difficult to put any sort of categorization around them. Because some of them are clearly a bit like pictograms in that they're symmetrical and they're recognizable. Some of them just seem to be lines which are symptomatic of a shape, perhaps an interference pattern. Some of them are diagrams, and some of them, quite frankly, are just squiggles. What Hamish actually bequeathed to me was, I'll tell you a lie, Hamish wasn't the only one to find pictograms. This actually was something that was drawn by Colin Bloy. Colin Bloy was the guy who told Hamish about the existence of pictograms. As it says in his book, Hamish himself was actually quite sceptical about them because they seemed to be all over the place and in no particular order and no particular, there didn't seem to be anything you could attach to them that told you what they were. And when Colin Bloy said, oh, I've got these pictures over here in the ether, Hamish didn't really believe him to start with, and he waited until Colin had gone away and then went back and looked for it himself. He then found some of these pictures, but in fact what he found was slightly different to what Colin has showed him. Equally, I think when two or more of us get together and have a look at these pictograms, we find that we don't always get exactly the same thing. We'll find a picture in the same shape. It may well be floral in design, or it may be cruciform in shape, but one person will find it slightly larger or smaller, and another person will find it more intricate, or perhaps not even at all.